We are live.
Good morning, and everyone, welcome to the second day of the City Council's budget hearings. Since we have just about everyone in place, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll of the Finance Committee.
Councilmember Evans.
Present.
Councilmember Harris.
Here.
Councilmember Patterson. Vice President Lightfoot.
Present, ma'am.
And President Scott looks like she's connecting.
And the president is on her way on. I'd like to note that we are joined by our other council colleagues. Gruber. Who else did I see here? P.O.
Melendez.
I think I heard Lupien, and did I get everyone? Am I missing any other council members? Melendez is here as well. Welcome everyone. We are this morning. We will begin our meeting discussing undistributed in the contingency sections of the budget. Then we will move on to the budgets of the information technology, the finance department, and the library. Then we will break for lunch. And we will go through each section of the budget. And as in last hearing, I will ask if anyone has questions. If you do so, please write your name and comments in the comment sections of the chat. And I will call on you before we move on to the next section. I will make sure that I go back to make sure that we got everyone. So before we get started with questions related to undistributed and contingency, I see Budget Director Wagner is here. I'd ask him if there's anything he'd like to say before we get into the questioning of that section of the budget. Mr. Budget Director.
Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning.
I just wanted to say with me today is Sarah Boyce, the budget analyst for undistributed. And then from HR, we've also got Tassie Demps, Chris Martinelli, Sarah Cressman, and Jeff Moore. And overall, undistributed, obviously, it's a very big chapter of our budget here. You'll see the increase this year is driven primarily by pension costs and medical expenses. And with that, I'll answer any questions you have.
Questions, colleagues, on undistributed?
I do have one. Oh, I see there's one in the chat too.
Okay, Councilmember Lightfoot and then Gruber.
I defer to Dr. Gruber first.
Okay, you defer. Go ahead, Councilmember Gruber.
That's very kind, VP. I actually have two. First, can you just explain how such a significant increase in pension rates happen over the course of 1 year? I just mechanically, how does that happen?
So I'll start and then I'll let Sarah answer. So basically the way the state, the way it works is the rates are kind of broken down by tiers, right? Retirement tiers. And so what's supposed to happen is there's supposed to be sort of a 5-year average that kind of goes into this. And they did that several years ago to kind of get away from, more peaks and valleys that we were seeing. And so, frankly, we were surprised to see the spike go as high as it did next year when we got the rates from the state. But it is all dictated by the state. And I think part of it, was the timing of the market conditions last year as well. Last March is when the market tanked significantly and affected returns for the state pension fund. That's since changed this year, right? They talked about historic returns, but we were a little surprised, frankly, by the peak that we saw too. Sarah, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Thanks, Chris. That's right. To give you a sense of the numbers, the rates that were given by the state, they do vary by tier. But on average, for our police and fire folks, last year's bill, on average, we paid a rate of 24.1% on their salaries. And for fiscal 22, the bill is going to be 28%. So it's almost a 4 percentage point increase year over year. And for our civilians, it's gone up from 14.1% last year to about 15.5% for for the new year. So just a really, sometimes we'll get small jumps or small decreases, but this was substantial.
And that's and just for clarity, that's all calculated at the state level. There's nothing, that is true of every municipality across New York State right now.
That's right. Everyone uses the same rates. That's right.
Got it. Is there any way at all for the upcoming usage of the ARP dollars to be able to impact this or mitigate it at all? I'm thinking in particular, if there's been any conversations of buyouts of people in tier 1 who are nearing or close to retirement. Have there been conversations about that at all?
No, there haven't. I mean, Sarah actually has a breakdown of how many employees we have by tiers. I don't believe we have that many left in tier 1. But, to answer your question in terms of the ARPA funds, one of the specific prohibitions about in the ARPA funds is that it can't be used for pensions. So I would not think that we could do any kind of an incentive with ARPA funds if that's what you're asking for. But again,
Gotcha.
I don't think we have a lot in tier 1 at this point. Sarah, do you know how many we have?
Yeah, and our civilians, we have less than 10 people in tiers 1 and 2. Tier 4 is our biggest tier. And really over time, people, new people coming in are in tier 6. So that shift, as you're implying, does reduce our costs over time. In police and fire, we still have almost 800 people in tier 2. So in police and fire, it's a little bit different. There was no tier 4 in police and fire. So a lot of people are still in tier 2 in that group.
Wow. Okay, so that's a major driver of this 7 million,
That's right.
especially with that 4% increase. Got it. Thank you. Thanks. My last question, on at least for the time being, is I see there's $1 million being added to implement race commission recommendations, and obviously certainly welcome that. As someone who served on the race committee, I thought there was some really compelling work that was done there. I am wondering what's the mechanism going to be for using this money, for tracking this money, for having how is city council a year from now going to look back and know kind of what was done and how it was done?
I think that's still to be determined, frankly. I don't know if the mayor wants to weigh in on this, but the $1 million here, if we move it into other departments to actually fund specific initiatives in departments, that would come to council in the form of a budget amendment. If it's spent directly out of undistributed, it wouldn't necessarily come to council unless there were a contract that required that. We can certainly ensure that we've got reporting around it for you. But I think the mechanics of that we still need to be worked out.
Yeah, I would love to see. I'm sorry, I saw Mayor Warren just joined. Mayor Warren, I was just asking about the $1 million to implement race commission recommendations. I'd love to see some type of just kind of, nothing extravagant, but some kind of written understanding of how those dollars, not what it's going to be used on, but what the process, how it's going to be done, so that we all can look back in a year and know that, we were able to accomplish some things and how it was done.
Absolutely. Right now, I know that Dr. Archie has been meeting with Candace Lucas, Dr. Lucas from the county, and there are a number of recommendations that we believe we could implement together. One of the major ones that came out, of course, was about MWBE certification, like what Buffalo and Syracuse has. And basically, the city would put in money, the county would put in money, and then possibly the school district and others to certify and to package MWBE certification. So right now, the process is that we have put together an internal group. Our internal group has looked at what does the city own and what do we believe we can impact. The county has done the same. And then collectively, we're going to get together, go through those items, and then see what are the things that we can, in a timeline, do expeditiously and what is long-term, short-term and long-term goals. And so right now, The first thing that we wanted to do was just really have each of our teams examine the report, see what fits into their particular department, and then make the recommendations on how to actually move forward. We're in the early stages of that. We have had the meeting where our team knows what we believe is the city's. We have to meet with the county, and then we'll be able to determine, what those dollars could and possibly be used for. But whatever we use it for, of course, would require council approval before we actually move forward with that.
Got it. Thanks. That's very helpful. So, and this makes perfect sense. I hadn't thought about it this way, but is it safe to say that the $1 million ultimately, in terms of accountability and reporting, that ultimately falls to Dr. Archie and the chief equity officer?
Yes, he will be spearheading that through, and of course, reporting that out. But also, some dollars available for training. One of the things that Vice President Lightfoot had brought up the last time, was this anti-bias and racism training and all that he wanted not only the administration but also council to take. Those are certain training for officers through the Executive Order 203 these dollars could also be utilized for. So we didn't want to put out just a plan of, this is what we think it should be used for. We want it to be that it's really in line with where we're going as a community and a greater Rochester community, and sometimes in partnership with the county. But there are some things that the city, of course, would be doing on its own, and he would be outlining that for not only the administration, but for council as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, are you done, Councilmember Gruber? Okay, Vice President Lightfoot, and then Councilmember Lupien.
Good morning, each and every one of you. Honor the mayor, deputy mayor, Madam President, Mr. Chairman, and all of my colleagues. A good segue into my question to piggyback off of Councilmember Gruber's question about the $1 million. Not so much looking, I'm glad to hear that there's a plan that's going to be going forward. I would just offer for consideration to look at when strategy-wise, this is a very historic opportunity that we have that we've never done before, that we're looking to engage in this work, put money and dollars behind this work. There's clearly, of course, a very detailed report of recommendations, but I would ask that and to relay this to Dr. Archie, to the team, that as we have this opportunity now, can we look to strategize to leveraging the $1 million to leverage not just the county, but private industry as well, to get some commitment from others within our community to take a collaborative effort and partnership with the city, as we've seen the city done many times before under the mayor's leadership. Oftentimes we are first out to do things and then others follow behind us. I believe that I would hate for us to miss an opportunity to leverage the $1 million, to ask others to match our $1 million, private companies, private industries, to match the $1 million, to help us to not only codify, but to extend and to be able to deeper into the recommendations, to implement many more of the recommendations if we have that type of call to the community, not only a municipality like the county, but also to private industry. I would love to see that as part of the strategy going forward. Thank you.
I agree, Councilmember, but Council Vice President Lightfoot, that of course is going to be a part of it, because as you all know, the Race Commission report is not just focused on government, it's also focused on community as well. And there are things that the community needs to, definitely step up and be a part of. And so, when they talk about redlining and housing and other things within the report, there are things that our banking industry can do. There are things that our private foundations can do. And so we're not just going to rely on government to implement these changes. It has to be a holistic community approach. And, through that, what we were talking about with the county and, going forward would be to really look at those things that each of those entities own and what other people in the community are really working towards and would be spearheading. And so through that, we believe that we could, of course, get dollars and support for implementation of the Race Commission's recommendations. So I can assure you that the team and Dr. Archie and Dr. Lucas, of course, are moving diligently and have really worked very, very hard keeping this particular program not only at the forefront of my mind and the county exec's mind, but really going to be looking to the community to make sure that they're investing their not only hard-earned dollars, but also their talents behind the changes that were recommended in the report.
Okay, Councilmember Lupien,
Yes. Hi.
and you have a question, and we're still on contingency and undistributed. Go ahead.
Thanks. Wondering if we can get a breakdown of employee benefits, a breakout of pensions from employee benefits by department.
Sure.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
have individuals coded by department, so I'd be able to break that out, yes.
Thank you.
Sure.
And I'd like the same for workers' compensation. And I don't,
I can provide that information to you.
thank you.
More.
And in terms of workers' compensation, I don't know how to get an idea of, how people are hurting themselves.
I can give you a breakdown of injuries as well.
That works. Perfect. Thank you. And then final question on contingency. Can we get a breakdown of what those funds were spent for in the last year?
In the current, in 2021.
Anything that's spent out of contingency actually gets amended as part of the budget, right? So it doesn't get spent directly out of contingency. It gets amended and moved to other departments. So it all comes to council. But yeah, we can give you a breakdown of what happened.
Yeah, thank you. That's all.
We're done with this section of the budget. We're going to move on to IT in 2 minutes.
Molly, can I ask one last question undistributed just for the record in a written response?
Go ahead, Councilmember Gruber.
On 1315, there's a launch of day labor program for panhandlers. I've talked with Mayor Warren about this a lot over the last year, and I'm wondering. I'm assuming it's an undistributed because we don't know if it's where it's going to live yet in terms of which department. But if there could just be a kind of written response of how we expect that to work and timelines and things like that for that $120,000, I'd appreciate it.
All right, that's you get an answer to that.
The day labor program, of course, we had, and as you know, Councilmember Gruber, we've been talking about this for about a year or two. This is a program that started in Syracuse. They adopted it from across the country. We know that we have a number of panhandlers, and basically we're talking to trying to do a demonstration project or a pilot program, possibly with Nick Coulter and Person-Centered Housing, because they did a survey, and then on that survey they found out that many of the people that are panhandling are either homeless or moving from the house to house, and they want to utilize this day labor program as a catalyst to get people not only into stable housing, but to get them the support that they need and the wraparound services that they need. And so we just had a meeting last week on this with the folks from Syracuse, as well as with Nick and his team, with Nick in particular, and they're going to go over to Syracuse and really look at how this program is operated. And basically, they would allow panhandlers to work in partnership. They have partnerships with the city, they have partnerships with the county, they have partnerships with DOT. As we all know, one of the things that, of course, is a pet peeve of mine is the litter, especially along the 490 and 104 corridors. And they would go out, they would hire these folks to clean. And they also have an agreement where they work with the county so that people that are on benefits that are earning dollars, they would know when they're going to trigger the loss of their benefits and say that, okay, you can't work this day. They also have a partnership with a doctor that provides help as it pertains to getting clean and substance abuse. So we really want to see if this pilot program and demonstration program works here in Rochester, and to get people not just in stable housing, but to also take care of their concerns. So I can have Nick he's going to write up a proposal, of course, after he goes to Syracuse, of exactly how he would operate this here. But I think that given the increase in panhandlers and what we're seeing in our community, that this is an ideal opportunity to give our residents an alternative and an opportunity to basically take care of themselves and their families and get off the street into stable housing and get the substance abuse support that they need, and also the mental health support that they need. And this program would allow them to do that.
Yeah, I thanks, Mayor Warren. I appreciate also the way you and Nick have tried to link this to Peace Village as well, which I think is really going to be meaningful. I was mostly curious about why it's an undistributed, but it sounds like it's because it's going to potentially be contracted out and not something that the city takes on ourselves.
Yes.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
All right, anything else on undistributed or contingency? All right, good. It's 9:20, so we'll move on to information technology. Is Mr. Bordeaux? Are you on, Mr. Bordeaux?
I'm here, Council member.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Bordeaux. I don't know if you want to make any opening comments and introduce your team for us before we get into questioning section 4 of the budget.
Yeah, I'll just do that. Thank you, everyone, this morning. I hope everybody's having a good morning. Again, Bill Boudreau here, Director of Operations. I have my management staff on: Harriet Fisher, Applications; Mike Ross with the platform team; Richard Wright with networking; Kate May, Office of Innovation; and I know I'm forgetting somebody, Joe Rossi, my security officer. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you and good morning. I'll start with questions. Mr. Bordeaux, every time I turn on the news lately, there is this crazy stuff going on with ransomware attacks, as well as folks really holding municipalities hostage, as well as private industry.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about, without giving away obviously any of our tactics, but our approach to ensuring that we are prepared to thwart these types of things? I mean, this has hit some pretty sophisticated companies, oil pipelines,
Right.
meat industry. What's our approach?
I could talk
and how the budget supports
Yeah,
that
go
as
ahead.
well, and how this current budget supports that.
Okay, I could talk a little bit about that, but I will put Joe Rossi on the spot right now and let him talk, since he is very, very versed in this. Joe, would you please address that question?
Absolutely, Bill. Good morning, Council Member Evans. The three major areas we focus on when it comes to ransomware is, as you know, we have annual cybersecurity awareness training for all city staff, and we're always evaluating and improving that year to year. We work with city staff to scan and secure their city applications, particularly those that are internet facing. And then we have in the operating budget agreements with partners to always detect, scan, and automatically remediate emails, files that try to enter or leave our network or city mailboxes.
Excellent. Okay, great. And then just another question. And I'm sorry, Mr. Bordeaux, did you want to add anything else to that?
No, thank you, Joe, for that.
I see that there's under the full-time position salary, there is an increase of an addition of a chief of performance accountability. Can you talk a little bit about what that position is and what that person would be responsible for?
Chief performance accountability. I believe, Chris, help me out here, is that, or whatever, is that
Yeah.
not the position of Kate's group moving in with us?
Correct. That's Kate May, Councilmember Evans. That's Kate May, and the Mayor's Office of Data Analytics and Performance is transferring into IT this year. That's why you see that position there.
And maybe the mayor can touch on the switch.
Yes, we touched on this last week at the last budget hearing when we had the mayor's office. So basically, IT and data analytics aligned together. And as they started to work on different projects, Kate and also the IT team thought that it's better that they worked in partnership. And that's the reason why we moved it over there, for them to be able to analyze and analyze different data points and data sets. To get, many of the forms that we do basically on paper onto the computer, to make sure that many of the projects that we're leading, that we have the right information and the right data points that are available as well. And data goes hand in hand with what IT is doing in also project management. And so because all of these three offices sort of work in tandem, it was better fit that they aligned and be in the same for them in that department. So that's what we discussed on last week. And I believe, is Kate on the phone?
Yes.
Okay. Kate, if you want to talk more specifically about your work and all the things that you're working on, from, Rock Your Refund to making sure that our KPIs and all that are aligned in the budget, to making sure that when we are moving from different systems, that we're doing it in the most efficient and effective way possible, and we're allowing the data to drive the decision-making process. Kate works very closely with Bill and also Harriet Fisher in the IT team. And what we saw in the last year was an opportunity for us to better align ourselves as a city and move the Office of Data Analytics over into the IT department. Kate?
Sure. So a lot of the work that we're trying to do with data analytics is currently, we're taking a pivoting approach to focus on technology, because a lot of the data sets that we would ideally be using to understand performance and operations are currently not efficiently gathered in electronic form. So, for example, a lot of the budget KPIs come from pretty manual processes. And so my team is working with Harriet Fisher's team to do as much digitization as we can, making it so that not only are those forms accessible by folks who don't need to necessarily come into City Hall to do their business, but also so that the data resulting from those electronic forms will be collected in a way that doesn't require a city worker to then re-enter them into a computer. Ideally, the data comes straight in a digital form with data validation, so the data quality can be increased, and we can use a lot of the tools that we have through the Office 365 platform to be able to make things more efficient in terms of moving data from one place to another. So, my team's big focus is on people, processes, and technology, making sure those are efficiently working together. And at this stage in the city's data maturity, we think that the best spot for us is in the IT department to be able to make sure that we are working the best we can with our other technology partners, and potentially in the future, once all the automation is in place, which is going to take a considerable amount of time, the team might be purposed in a different way. But this is definitely the main focus right now is automation, digitization, data quality, that sort of thing.
Excellent, thank you. Councilmember Harris, did you still have a question, or did I ask it already?
You asked my question.
Oh, okay, that's right on the ransom stuff. Okay, Councilmember Lupien.
Yeah, hi. Just wondering if you can kind of give an idea of some of the major projects coming up in the next year and kind of maybe a general vision.
Sure. So some of the major projects that we're looking at right now that are on the plate, one is that has been on the table for a while. And I'm sorry, Mayor, would you like to talk to this before me?
No, Bill, you can talk about it. The major project that I said you can talk about, then I'll start talking, right? I think that what's most important, of course, is, IT security. And I really want to take a moment to thank our IT team for their hard work during the pandemic. Because in a moment's notice, Bill and his entire team was able to get laptops to, hundreds of different staff members to, give us the ability to really work from home during the pandemic. They were also able to make sure that all of our systems were up and running, from, putting us on Zoom to Microsoft Teams, also able to upgrade different systems within, go to Microsoft 365 and all of that. But one of the things that they're, of course, working on is land management, along with the project management team. And also a series of different upgrades to our IT system, because at some point in time, we need to get off the mainframe. We need to get off of that system. It's antiquated, and they've been working very, very hard to move us off of the mainframe and to adjust the work that we're doing and upgrade our systems. Body worn cameras as well is another project that they're working on, and becoming more efficient and being able to redact things, better. The FOIL system, of course, is another item that IT is working on. So we have a series of different major IT items that the team has been working on, but I did want to take a moment to commend them for their hard work, because the last year would not have been possible without having a dynamic IT team and structure in order to get the work done on behalf of our residents. And so, Bill, I think I talked about 3 or 4 of the major projects, but I know you have smaller things that you're working on as well, if you want to address those.
Thank you very much, Mayor, for those kind words. It's our pleasure to serve this community. As I've said many times, this is the best job I've ever had. So just stay in that, just wear whatever that's worth. Just a couple of the other things. The mayor mentioned the major ones, Councilperson Lupien. Is there other ones you wanted to hear about? I mean, there's a lot of smaller things. I mean, Harriet could talk about digitization and city forms and marriage licenses and things we're doing with city clerk. There's other initiatives going on in other areas, but the mainframe, land management, and accounts receivable, which is part of that mainframe coming off of the mainframe into hopefully Munis. Those are the big ones that are in play right now, along with BWC, body worn camera. So.
Oh, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, I would be interested to hear any projects with the clerk and digitization. I'm also interested in, efforts across the city to, how IT is involved in, as we transition back to in person, continuing to have meetings on, accessible via Zoom.
Yeah, so just so you know, I've been getting requests from different departments now that we're returning to work. People are requesting cameras, they're requesting headsets, because as everyone is aware, sitting in a cubicle trying to do a meeting on a speakerphone or with your speakers on your lap, that doesn't work for people. That's very disruptive. So I've been in the process of purchasing cameras and headsets as needed for anyone who requests them. DES, AES, HR. We pretty much, to the mayor's point, I think we have everybody outfitted, and anybody who needs a laptop from this go around in the pandemic, I've been swapping desktops for laptops as needed. So I think in that regard, we, Council Member Lupien, we have got them taken care of pretty well, I hope. And did you want to talk anything about the clerk?
Oh, sorry, just before we move off the topic, I was also kind of wondering around, our meetings of boards and commissions that have been online and people can participate online.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been thinking about kind of, hybrid meetings and being able to integrate, a room full of people with the Zoom platform?
Yeah, just so you know, we just recently brought in a vendor to look at 4 conference rooms in the B building We just upgraded the mayor's conference room a week ago, 309A, to a new system that allows camera, Zoom, everything for the whole room could be put on Zoom easily. So yes, council member, we
And they
are definitely looking into that.
And Bill, you also upgraded some systems in council chambers as well.
Right. There.
So there's you know,
Got it.
I know that council hasn't been in the council chambers in over a year, but those that have been able to come to City Hall would be able to see that there's a new technology within council chambers.
Yes.
And our hope is that we'll be able to have, you know, in-person meetings very soon. Will we have a hybrid approach where hopefully people will be able to talk, you know, do the speak to council portion via Zoom, and then have other folks be in the building as well. And so we're looking at across the board opportunities to fully have an engaged community by being in fully opening City Hall. We brought all of our workers back to City Hall on June 1st. And that has been going well. And we will continue to make the necessary upgrades and technology necessary to have a fully functioning City Hall and also council as well.
Yeah.
That's great news. Thank you.
Yeah, the new technology that I completely forget, because for me, I guess it becomes old hat. There is a brand new TV, 75-inch on a rollable cart with a desktop attached wirelessly with a HDMI cable as needed that has replaced the probably 20-year-old, Mayor might agree, screen, projector, laptop, whatever that setup was, that I still to this day am amazed how that screen stood up without falling over. But anyway, that has been replaced by this new technology the mayor is speaking of. We are in the meantime going through 208A and 321B with these new setups that we put in the mayor's conference room in 309A. So yes, Councilmember Lupien, to your point, we are looking toward the future, and people are asking to gather now and gather, and they still want to be able to have the camera. So we are looking at that. So
Thank you. Councilmember Lupien, are you done?
I think there's still the clerk portion.
Harriet? Can't hear you, Harriet. Oh, yeah. You know what? We can get back to you, Councilmember Lupien, okay? She will be happy to send you a nice email on that, okay?
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Gruber and then Vice President Lightfoot.
I just want to say it's good. I'm glad to know that even IT people sometimes have Zoom problems. That makes me feel that makes me feel a little bit better. I just have two questions. I actually first want to build off something I heard the mayor mention about getting us off the mainframe. I've heard for a while about how critical that's going to be about getting us off the mainframe in terms of receivables and being able to actually, function, do the work of city, the business of the city. Is there a plan to get us off the mainframe and to have new abilities for receivables in this budget year?
Mayor, go ahead.
Process, because there's so many different systems and antiquated, but we're moving towards that. We won't be completely off of the mainframe in 1 year. I think it's going to take several years for us to get off of the mainframe, but little by little, we're moving different systems off of the mainframe and integrating and the technology that we're buying connects to one another. So we're being very strategic about the technology that we're purchasing so that it can align with what we currently have. And that's the reason why sometimes it takes a little bit longer for us to get, to figure out exactly which technology we want to purchase. I wish I could say that it would be in 2 years that we're off of the mainframe. But I can just tell you that there is a plan and we're executing the plan.
Thanks. That makes sense in terms of really big processes. Even in my brief tenure on council, thinking about stuff like Munis and Kronos and some of the major software changes, it's not a you snap your fingers and it's over type of thing. But I guess I think for the purpose of a budget hearing, the big question for me is, are we investing? That seems like a critical function of what we do, right? I mean, even when you look at the Biden-Harris administration, it's counterintuitive, but one thing they need to invest in is the IRS, right? You need to invest in these abilities to collect the dollars that make our city run. Are we investing the right resources both into IT? I know we have finance next time to get this done on the pace that it needs to be done.
I think that we have the right team, and we are working towards and making the necessary investments. There may be some ways to use some of the American Recovery Funds to expedite some of the things that we're doing. But you also don't want to jump into something, and Kate has been really honing on this, that without understanding the processes and procedures, and trying to having to do workarounds. You want a system, you want to know what the system capabilities are, how it connects with our system, and what it is that the businesses, meaning our businesses, do on a daily basis to make it easier and more effective and efficient for us to actually have that system. Because you can purchase a system that can do some of the things that you want, but then you're in a situation where you're trying to do these workarounds, and it's not more effective, it's not more efficient. And we all know that that's what we're dealing with, basically, with the Munis system that we purchased. We're working with what we have, but it wasn't the best system for the city of Rochester. And we don't want to make the same mistake twice. And that's why I think that our IT department, Bill, in partnership with Kate and Harriet, are very cautious about how we proceed so that it makes the most sense for the city of Rochester and how we do business. A lot of cities, like with neighborhood and business development, and our code enforcement and all the things that we do around code enforcement. This is why the land management process is so complex and complicated, because there's not many cities that, and I don't think there's any other city that does it the way that we do it. And because of that, there is an off-the-shelf system that we can purchase, but we have to be able to provide the support to our landlords and our tenants, and also make it more effective for our employees to actually utilize this system. Because what's the point in investing in it if we are not making it more effective and efficient? So that's just an example of why we have taken the time and put aside the resources to do the things that way that we do them, because it has to be more effective and efficient and long-term for the city of Rochester to make this investment in to do it the right way, instead of just doing it because we want to do it. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Bill or Kate.
I would just want to say that, to your point, Mayor, maybe the Munis, to your point, it wasn't maybe the best for the city at the time, but you made a great point with like land management. Second go round here, we're going to get this right, because it has to be right for the city. So Kate, why don't you have something to add there?
Sure. If we had tapes of the budget hearing a few years ago, I believe we said we were on a 10-year timeline to get off the mainframe. So now we're on a 2 to 3 year timeline. We are doing the best that we can to accelerate that. But as the mayor very well put it, we don't want to rush into things. Governments have not had a great track record of technology implementations, partially because sometimes there's pressures to get stuff done instead of done well. And Bill has a really great plan for how we're going to get off the mainframe. We just want to make sure that we don't put any systems or people in jeopardy as a result.
Thank you, Kate.
I really appreciate that answer, and I'm not here to try to rush something faster than it needs to be done. I would just add, though, that when it comes to the federal dollars that are coming in, I know that it's not, things getting us off the mainframe is not the sexiest of investments, but it might very well be one of the wisest investments that we can make. And I would love to see some dollars going there, not just for the technology, but potentially, you know, I'd imagine it's not just the technology, it's also the staffing and the capacity in the department to be able to do some of this work. So just a pitch for that, but I appreciate knowing that there's, you know, a lot of talk and strategy around this. I didn't doubt that there was. My last question on this, Councilmember Evans, and I'll cede the floor, is on 4.4. The first major change is funding shifts from cash capital to operating, and funds are added to support ongoing maintenance for Cronus, Munis, and GIS software is $625,000. Is it a fair expectation to assume that 625-ish is what's going to be the kind of operating expenses for these things moving forward? Is that going to become an annual expense?
Yes.
And it's not going to waver. It's not going to veer much from that 625 for those systems specifically.
Our goal is always to keep those costs in line, as Chris is over there watching very closely and listening to every word that I say. We want to make sure that we give the city the best value always for the operating dollars that we spend. So, you know, Councilmember Gruber, we are going to make sure that, you know, we keep those costs in line. But yes, we are moving toward an operational world. So,
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you. I believe Ms. Fisher's microphone is working now, so she can answer that other question now. Ms. Fisher.
I'm sorry, can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, loud and clear.
Thank you. Sorry about that, Councilmember Lupien. Yes, we have been working with the clerk's office. So with Hazel Washington, we've been working with them recently to help bring about some automation to their the way they catalog their council proceedings. So the indexing for the council proceedings is a very manual process. It's killing Hazel and her staff. So my staff has been working with her staff to find some software to help make that process easier. We've also been working with Hazel and Joanne Reeves to bring about some automation to their council agenda review process. So the whole process of receiving the transmittals from departments and getting all that stuff ready for you guys each week. And so they've been using the new tools for that, our Office 365 tools. So we have brought about some improvements to that, but we're hoping to continue to work with them to bring about more improvements to that process as well. Also very manual process at the moment.
Thank you. Council Vice President Lightfoot.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Go ahead.
Go ahead, VP.
Sorry, I just had a follow up.
Oh, you had a follow up
yeah.
from the answer? Okay, go ahead,
yep.
Councilmember Lupien. And then we'll go to the VP.
Yeah, in terms of indexing legislation, when I've been kind of like searching around other cities, I've noticed that they have software, like web-based cataloging of legislation so that you can kind of go back and search and see the whole process. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Actually, it's two parts. And so there's the web part, the online part, which we're able to do in-house with our Office 365 tools. But then Hazel, her staff check to see what our requirements are as far as keeping those proceedings. And so we still need to keep a physical book. And so creating that index for the physical book is the software that we're looking at. So the index for the physical book is different from for the records online, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. VP Lightfoot.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I'm grateful for the work of the IT department as well, too, and for our citizens and all the things that they help to provide to not only employees, but to also the citizens. I want to just offer for consideration, and I don't know if it fits here, but you guys let me know. But I think it aligns. Of course, we're looking at how do we improve our technology and our various things for our employees. But I wonder if there's an opportunity. The pandemic showed us anything. It showed us, and here we, as we heard Councilmember Gruber say, it's good to hear that IT has problems with Zoom as well. Well, of course, our community, I'm sure, struggles with a lot of these technology opportunities and issues. I wonder, is there an opportunity for us to think outside of the box here and see some opportunity to, and I'd like to see some alignment with our libraries, our rec centers, to provide some type of training for the community around education, around IT, how to navigate the website, how to navigate, how does the technology align to them, the average resident in this community, how make the connection between the two, and then create opportunities through our libraries, our rec centers, to provide training opportunities to the average citizen of how do they engage and navigate and use technology to their benefit. We see the digital divide is very real in our community, especially with our seniors. So I'd really like to see some thinking around that and some community alignment around aligning not only, you know, IT thinking about the employees and how to make our lives better, but how can we train and educate our community around these things as well too. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Lightfoot, and you're 100% right with the challenges in the digital divide, and that's the reason why it was very important for us to get our libraries back open, and I'm thankful to our library director, Patty Guttaro, for, you know, because a lot of our community members actually go to our libraries. And I see you laughing, Councilmember Scott, President Scott. So they utilize them in order to, you know, do resume building, to surf the web, to search for jobs. And it was during the pandemic, it was very hard for them. And that's the reason why we made hours available for our community to come in. And so all of our librarians and those that are working there are prepared to help the community be able to navigate the system. Our learning labs, as well as many of our rec centers, were equipped with, and we brought in new technology, new computers into the rec centers so that our children, as well as people that lived in the neighborhoods, could utilize those computer labs to also surf the web, and our staff have been trained in and have been helping them navigate those waters. That doesn't mean that we can't do more, and we can always look to do more, but when we have the opportunity to upgrade our systems and to be of service to the community through new technology, new computers, and having our staff be able to navigate those waters and help them navigate those waters, we are. And that's the reason why it was very important for us to open back up, because we knew that this was a resource that our community was missing. Currently, we do have a team of people that's working with the county. They just released the RFP. Kay can talk about a number of years ago, we did a Magellan study that, you know, in partnership with the county of Monroe, which talks about the dark fiber that is actually publicly owned fiber that's underground that we looked at, and hopefully through the second study that the county is spearheading, that we will be able to allow that fiber to be lit up. And if that is the case, and we are able to make those connections, we believe that we can have the entire city of Rochester basically, have fiber access and have internet access, because we have the infrastructure underground, most of the infrastructure underground right now. An interesting study that Kate and her team did, I believe last year, around looking at municipal broadband and how many people utilize municipal broadband and who doesn't have access currently to broadband, and in some other cities that have municipal broadband. And even though the 100% of the city may be wired for fiber, only about 85% of the people actually are utilizing that fiber in those cities that have municipal broadband. And when we look at what we currently have, if we're able to allow our dark fiber that both the city and the county, mostly county owns, to be lit up, we would be basically at that same amount. And so that's one of the things that I know that the county is looking at, and we do have, believe Chief of Staff Brittany Wells is on that committee, as well as someone from our IT department is on that committee, that's working with the county on that. But this is something that is a priority, not only for our administration, but as you said, it's a benefit to our entire community, giving them the tools that they need in order to be able to access what we consider to be like electricity and water and all of that. Fiber and internet access is the pandemic has shown us is one of those necessities, and we're doing everything possible to make sure that our residents get the support that they need, even at our centers and our libraries.
Thank you, Mayor. We have two people on the staff who are very passionate about this topic. Richard Wright is in fact on the commission you just mentioned, Mayor, and he is looking into that very much. And Harriet Fisher is very much into this whole the literacy program and everything. Harriet, do you want to say a couple words about that?
No, I was just smiling while Councilmember Lightfoot was speaking, because it was as if he was in our meeting a couple of weeks ago where we were doing some strategizing in IT, and one of our big topics was around community involvement, and we spoke a lot about the digital divide and us doing our part as IT civil servants to our citizens to provide them with this literacy that they need. So us partnering with Department of Recreation and Human Resources, or us partnering with the library to make sure that people are getting that training. So we're already, the city's already doing these things, but there's more that we can bring to them. Even working more with our students and in the city school district, we've been working with Pathways to Peace, Pathways to Technology at Edison Tech, the P-Tech program. We've been mentoring those students monthly, and we're gonna have a bunch of them come in through the Summer of Opportunities program. We're gonna have, I think, 8 summer interns this year, more than we've ever had before. And the whole point of that is because we want to reach our youth and make sure they have not just the computer literacy part of it, but that they have those developer skills. They have those skills that we have here in IT already, those coding skills, those high skills, those skills that are high paying jobs, right? So we want to make sure our youth are getting those jobs. And so we're working with the school district and partnering with Edison to follow those kids from high school all the way through college, and hope one day they would come here and work for City IT. But yes, just tackling all of that with the computer literacy, developing our youth, all those things is a huge passion of this management team. And we've actually added it to our strategic plan. So we're right there. It's like you were right in our meeting the other day.
Well, that's good. And I know there's a connection there because I graduated as well as Councilmember Harris from Edison. So go Inventors.
Yes, and I graduated from Wilson as well as my colleague, Mike Ross. We're Wildcats.
Go Wildcats.
Very good.
That's right. The Wildcats still outnumber the Inventors on this call. Sorry.
I don't quite think so, sir.
Oh, I forgot Patterson.
Oh, that's right. Councilman Patterson.
I
the tie.
Patterson. I forgot about Patterson. Man. That's right. I withdraw that statement then. I have a quick question before I go to Councilmember Melendez, because I know just knowing so many people in the IT field, they are always in high demand. How's recruitment and retention of folks? Every time I see IT folks that, they get offered these big salaries and they're moving all around. How's it been this past year in terms of recruitment in the city, in the department?
Recruitment has been fantastic, even during a pandemic. We've been able to fill a couple of key roles. The people that we have are growing all the time, and they're staying. We have a great team. There's really been very little turnover. And the benefits here at the city, everybody, you can think what you like about the private sector. These are the best benefits you're going to get. And I'm going to tell you right now that the IT salaries here at the city are more than in line with the private sector. So we have had really no issue, Councilmember Evans, in maintaining our staff.
That's excellent. And that's what I always say to folks, the public sector benefits. I think folks in the public, in the private sector don't realize how good particularly the pension is, and that is a differentiator.
Yep.
Councilmember Melendez.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Evans. So I just want to follow the thread of municipal internet and internet service in general across the city. I know that for years, one company has had a monopoly pretty much on services here. We've had some push in with new companies coming in and offering services. But when you look at the service maps for some of these companies that are coming into the city, it looks like every other disparity still. And there's certain neighborhoods that still are left out of service. So I'm just wondering, either from a private sector perspective, how can the city, this really isn't too much of a budget question, although this will cost money. How much of this can be pushed by the city, or how much of this is something that we just need to continue down the rabbit hole with this committee that's formed at the county level to expedite internet services across the city.
I think Councilmember Melendez, that's the reason why we looked at the fiber that we actually have in the ground, both the city and the municipal fiber that we have in the ground. And it would be important, and we're hopeful that that fiber will be lit up. As we know that the best way to sort of drive down costs for residents is, of course, competition. And so if we're able to utilize and to make those connectivities, then, where there's some breaks in the system, we'll be able to drive down some of that cost. We do have, you have Greenlight that's coming in that's, expanding, but not expanding as rapidly as we want to, but they're doing in some buildings. The work that, the dollars that were given federally as well as statewide for access to internet is going to be helpful as well. It's one of the reasons why we provided MiFi website, MiFi devices to residents, and they can get those MiFi devices. They can rent some for free from the library. And so we're doing everything possible to drive down those costs, and we will continue to work collectively together, because it's not, something that, of course, the city can, do on its own. What we recognize and realize through the Magellan study that was done a couple years ago, and we can get that over to council again, is that there is a lot of dark fiber. Actually, in downtown Rochester, I believe, Kate, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe there's a double redundancy if all of that fiber was lit up. And so, we definitely want to utilize what we have. There are systems in place or rules in place that currently preclude, the county from lighting up their fiber. And I think that that's the reason why they want to do this study, to look at, how to actually make that particular fiber, along with the city's fiber, be available to residents. So we're going to continue to work on it. Like I said, I believe that internet access is going to be like water. It's a necessity, like water, like electricity, like all of those other amenities that we have. And we're just going to have to find a way to make sure that our residents get access. And it's going to be a process, but we are working within the process that has been laid out in partnership with others in order to bring that those opportunities to our residents.
Fully agree with you, Mayor.
And I did want to piggyback off of what the director was saying about hiring. It depends on the position. And so there are certain positions in IT that, of course, the director is 100% right. We were able to hire for, but we are having some challenges in the project management office with larger sort of projects and implementation and all of that. Those project leaders are definitely hard to come by, and they're a hot commodity. When I tell you that government does not pay what private industry pays for those people. And so we're going to have to figure out a way to, sort of compete. We've had a number of different people that were right there, right at the cusp of signing on a dotted line. And then, somebody from, San Francisco came along and gave them a better deal. So I would say that it definitely depends on the position in information technology that requires rather we can compete with the private industry or not.
The mayor is absolutely correct, and I apologize for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilmember Patterson, you had a question to IT?
Thank you. in the course of reviewing the budget, sometimes you find things in other places that apply to other things. So the police department is looking to implement a cold case web. Are they coordinating with you to get that accomplished?
I apologize, you cut out for a second, Mayor. You
Okay,
probably grabbed
no
it.
problem. So the police department is looking to implement a cold cases webpage. And it says in their document that they're having some challenges regarding the funding to get that up and running. Is that something that they're working with you to coordinate?
Yes, Harriet, I don't know. I know that you used to be in charge and work directly with the police department on a number of their initiatives. Do you have the complete answer to that? But I know that they are working very, very closely with IT on a number of different issues.
Yes, thank you, Mary. Yes, we have developed the cold case website for them. It is, it's been developed, it's being tested. We also created an internal process for them to review the files before they're published to the website. So what they want to do is, so basically anything that's still, so homicide cases never close if they're unsolved, right? So they have this long list of cases that they want to push out there. They want to review the information that's being shown to the public. So we have a process for them to go through an approval process internally first. And then we have a process for them, for citizens to submit information about cases as they view a case online. They can submit information about that case. And so we have an internal process that has a review process for that as far as what actually makes its way over to who in RPD. So yes, so the whole thing actually, Christopher Cruder on my team, one of my developers, he has completely developed that process working with Captain Umbrino and Lieutenant Perkowski's Eric group to get that in place. It should be, I don't want to speak out of line, but it should be up and live very soon because it really is in the testing phase at this point.
Okay, and the other question, again, around the police and business intelligence. How do y'all coordinate together? I mean, we tend to look at things in silos when we look at our budget, and we don't tend to take a cross-platform look at things. It seems as though in some instances they're very specific in what they do. How do IT and the business intelligence unit for the police department work together?
Well, there's a dotted line from the business intelligence unit and RPD to IT. And Mayor, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to this at all, or you want me to grab this?
You can start and then I can add on the back end.
Okay. Yeah, so business intelligence unit, Nick Petiti, they work directly with us. As the mayor alluded to, Harriet's had a lot of experience working with the RPD over the years and working closely with them. I also have direct lines into some of them. So they keep us abreast of all the projects that come up. They bounce things off of us. They ask us for guidance. I mean, if anything, I think they're more than cautious in including IT, Councilmember Patterson, rather than not including us. I would say they err on the side of, we look to IT, please tell us, are we doing the right thing? Are we not doing the right thing? So.
Thank you.
Yep. Welcome.
Anything else on IT from my colleagues? Mary Lupien, Councilmember Lupien, do you have another question related to IT?
I do.
Okay,
I just wanted to loop back to land management. It says that it has to, the vendor that we selected didn't work out and it has to kind of go back out. And so just wondering what the timeline is on that.
We've already gone on. Mayor, go ahead. You know as much as I do, so yeah.
Go ahead, Bill. Okay,
yep. We went out for RFP, that closed. We have vetted through the 9 recipients we got. We have gotten down, Kate, you're with me on this every step of the way. I believe we're down to 4. If we're gonna have second demos, we already had initial demos. We've gotten it down to 4 and we are getting that down. I think we're a week and a half away from getting through those demos. And I think we want to make a decision as early as early July to a final vendor. But Kate, am I right on that?
Yeah, we won't have contract negotiated by early July, but we hope to be in negotiations by then.
That's good news. And then do you have an idea of once we've selected how long it would take to get it up and running?
Current timelines are, we've asked for reduced ones. Some of them were as high as 26 months. Others were a very accelerated 9 months, which would have crippled the IT department to provide those services. So we're looking at about 12 to 18 months seems reasonable.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions for IT? Okay, thank you, IT and the entire team. We greatly appreciate your conversation with us this morning on the IT section of the budget. We will take a 10-minute break and we'll reconvene at 10:20 to hear from Finance Director Brooks Harris on that section of the budget. So let's reconvene at 10:20. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye now.
Okay, we are back in business. I want to bring us back from our break and welcome Finance Director Brooks Harris. Say good morning to you and give you the opportunity to make any statements that you want to make, or and also introduce your team. So, Ms. Brooks Harris.
Hello, good morning, everyone. I am Director Brooks Harris, and I would like to introduce my bureau heads for the Finance Department. I have with me the Head of Accounting, Kathy Havens, the Head of Purchasing, Constance Mitchell-Jefferson, the Head of Assessment, Mike Zazzara, the Head of Treasury, Kim Jones, the Head of TVA, Dr. Leslie Smith, and the Head of Parking, Laura Miller.
Thank you, Director Harris. And we'll get right into questioning. We're going to start. We're going to do this by section because this is a department that has a lot going on in it. And we're going to start with the Director's Office, Accounting and Treasury, which are sections 5.7 through 5.19 in your budget book. So I will entertain questions around 5.7 and 5.19 in the budget book under the Department of Finance. Do I have any questions on that section?
Sorry, Malik, I apologize. You said 5.7 to 5.19?
5.7 through 5.19, correct.
Thanks. I do have a couple of questions.
Okay, Councilmember Gruber, you can start us off.
Thanks. And thank you to Roz and your team, Director Harris and your team for being here. I have a question. I want to start. A major thing we've talked about over the last couple of years was around tax agreements and trying to figure out how we can be as flexible as possible to figure out how to increase our receivables and without without doing any harm to our residents. And I'm just wondering, is there an update on how things have gone with tax agreements? I'd imagine it's difficult because last year was a strange year generally for taxes, but any updates there?
You broke up. I don't know. I'm getting that my internet is unstable. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Did you hear me?
I can hear you, Councilman Gruber. Roz, would you like me to respond?
Looks like she's frozen now. Oh. Yeah, Kim, if you're willing.
Yeah, let me just respond to that. So, due to the pandemic, we haven't been getting many inquiries regarding tax agreements. That's really a function of us not having started a foreclosure action as of yet. Generally what happens is once we send out that warning letter, that's kind of the impetus for the taxpayer to come in to be interested in applying for a tax agreement. So we haven't gotten to that stage yet, but generally what happens is once we do get to sending out the warning letter and initiating the action, that's kind of when people come in to apply for tax agreements.
Got it. Well, I do want to thank you, Kim, and Director Harris and Mayor Warren and everyone for their effort. Councilmember Lightfoot, former councilperson Ortiz, and myself had really advocated for the end of selling tax liens, and it's clear in this budget that we are done doing that. And I think that's a really wonderful thing. But it obviously puts more of a burden on the finance department. And I'm wondering, generally speaking, how collections went last year. What if you have any concerns about getting the tax bill out or doing collections this year in the midst of the pandemic? Just wondering about any thoughts around that.
So everything basically is going pretty well this year. Everything went well last year. Last year actually was the first year we actually worked remotely to issue the tax bill. So everything pretty much went pretty well. We work in concert with our IT department as far as programming, things of that nature. So right now, the challenge is we're utilizing ARPIS. That's our new assessment system. but things are still running through Arlem, which is the old assessment system. So the data conversion at times can be difficult, if you will. So we struggle with that a little bit, but for the most part, I think everything is pretty much manageable. It's just a lot of manual intervention required.
Got it. And we had a conversation in the last session with IT about moving off the mainframe, and it seems like IT feels pretty confident we're in a maybe 2 to 3 year window to get us off the mainframe. I'm assuming that's really welcome news for the finance department.
Absolutely. Our systems are 40 plus years old, so we do struggle with those systems. IT does not have a lot of people over there that can manage those systems lately. So we essentially are working with a person that has a ton of knowledge on the old mainframe systems. And he has a team of individuals that assist him, but for the most part, he's it as far as managing the mainframe. So yeah, it is welcome to actually be off of the mainframe systems.
And I guess I asked IT this question too, and the mayor and Kate and Bill, sorry about my dog there, gave a very good answer about what's next. But I just want to make sure, does finance have the resources needed in this budget to be able to do, I think in some ways, the most critical business of city government of getting the bill out and collecting?
Well, I'm going to say we can always use more resources, just because of retirements and cutbacks. So we could always use more resources, but we do the best we can with what we have.
I'm good for now, Councilmember Evans.
Okay, anything else from any council members on 517 through 519 before we move to the next section? Okay, 520 through 523 is always a fun section. Assessments. Anybody have questions on 520 through 523, the assessment section?
Excuse me, Chair Evans, can I go back to 515? I do have a question.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd just like to know a little bit more about, you have on page 515, there's the implementation of a new cash management software solution to manage investments. Can you talk to us a little bit more about what that is and what enhancements are you expecting to achieve with the new software?
I can respond to that, Roz, if you like. Okay, so we have, we purchased a software called Simpro, and it's an investment software. And basically prior to utilization of that software, we were struggling with managing, recording our investments, recording interest earnings. Everything was manual, a lot of manual intervention, manual journal entries. This software allows us to automate the recording of investment information, and it provides us with myriad investment reports to be able to manage investments effectively. And it also assists accounting with being able to record the entries in a timely fashion. The entries are automated at this point. So it helps us to be more efficient, if you will, and gets us away from a lot of the manual intervention associated with managing Excel spreadsheets.
Does it integrate with any other systems that we?
It does. It
okay.
integrates with our finance system.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I think I got one other question, I guess is more for clarity. I think Councilmember Gruber mentioned a little bit about it. Is there anything being done, like when you talk about the delinquent taxes, what is being done to kind of like help people through the COVID-19 process? I know last year, former Councilmember Ortiz talked about challenging you to consider reducing the interest rates for delinquent taxes. Was there any consideration for that, or is there anything that you guys have done to mitigate that?
So at this point, we haven't really taken any action on that, Councilperson Harris. And that's primarily a factor of the old mainframe system that we're utilizing. It's really hard to kind of programmatically work in that system to be able to change interest rates and offer, multiple interest rates. So at this point, we're kind of really waiting and working on the new mainframe systems that would afford us more flexibility.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Of course.
That concludes my question.
Anything else? Okay. Anything else on 5.7 to 5.19 before I move on to 5.20 to 5.23 from anyone that I may have missed?
I have a question.
Okay, we'll move on to on 5.7 to 5.19, Councilmember Peel?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
So it seems like we're getting prepared for a giant increase in foreclosures. Can you talk a little bit more about that, please? I believe that there's something that we could do more. I want to make sure that we are, because it seems like we have almost double the budget for foreclosures coming up, and that's a scary thing for me, seeing as how a lot of people are 90 days plus late on their mortgages.
Would you like me to speak to that, Roz? Yes, please. Okay, so Councilperson Payo, we are actually working with our neighborhood and business development department. The strategy this year is not to foreclose on owner occupants. The mayor has actually given us that directive. And so don't intend to foreclose on owner occupants. We will be closing on investment type properties. The neighborhood and business development department is kind of really targeting those investment properties that are troublesome in the neighborhoods. This year in particular, though, we are offering the COVID-19 hardship agreements or arrangements that the state has put into effect. So what we will be doing is when we issue the warning letter, we will be putting information in that warning letter concerning the COVID-19 hardship process. And basically what that process does is they basically submit an application, and that application gets approved, and they basically get removed from the tax foreclosure sale. So we expect to see a lot of those COVID-19 hardship applications that will remove people from the foreclosure sale.
Additionally, I want to add to that, that we are no longer selling our tax liens. And so this was a directive that, of course, Councilmember Gruber mentioned earlier, that not only the administration, but council worked together on to stop the sale of tax liens. And so you have an increase in tax foreclosure because you're no longer selling tax liens and to a third party vendor, which would reduce that number of tax foreclosures. But we are being very consciously aware of those people that have been affected by COVID-19. Additionally, because there are some challenged properties that, of course, our neighborhood and business development and our residents have been complaining about for a significant period of time, ones that have a lot of points on them, ones that are in complete disrepair. Many people think that some of these boarded up homes belong to the city because they're boarded up, and that's not accurate. Many of these homes are either zombie homes, or they are homes that are owned by private investors that have walked away from the home that we need to take ownership of. And the only way that we can take ownership of that home is to actually do a tax foreclosure on it. And so that's what we're doing this year. Ms. Jones is right when she says that we are not foreclosing on owner occupants. We want to give our owners the opportunity to come in and do tax agreements and all of that with us, as well as the COVID hardship, paperwork as well. So we're going to do everything that we possibly can to keep people in their homes, but we do have problem properties that currently are not owned by the city that without tax foreclosure, there's no way for us to take those properties.
Okay, that opened up to another question. Do we have the capability of seeing which of these non-owner occupied homes are owned by foreign investors, meaning those outside of Rochester versus those who are within the Rochester area?
Yes. The Neighborhood and Business Development Department, and this is one of those things that when we talk about land management and other capabilities that we are looking for with the new system right now, we have different data points and different data systems where this information is being held. But for every property in the city of Rochester, there is a requirement that if it's a rental property that they have a C of O. And that C of O requires them to provide us with specific information. Who owns the property? Is it being managed by a local person? Is it being, what's the contact information for the person that owns this property? That information is within the system and is readily available. One of the reasons why part of the Neighborhood and Business Development Department's budget also included, funds for revenue to license people to actually manage properties is because we do know that some of our out-of-town investors have had a number of problems with people that they have hired to manage properties, thinking that going well. We're contacting the management company saying, listen, this is what's wrong, this is going on, and not getting a response. The owner thinks that they're getting, that the property is being taken care of, and it's not. And so we're in the process of that land management system that we're talking about is one of the ways that we can basically streamline this process and make it more effective and efficient for us. But right now, one of the things that we are looking to do in the next year is to really license property managers so that even out-of-town investors can know that, these people are people that are licensed with the city and are reputable companies so that they're not taken advantage of as they have been, and some of them have been in the past.
And just to follow up on that as well, and this is kind of a cross question into another area, but can we add a course or class to the community wealth building that talks about how to purchase these foreclosure homes and how to maybe put some money in the budget to help our own city residents to purchase these investment products? Is that a possibility?
Absolutely, and we have done that we've done that, and that's what our land bank is all about. We had a home in this Susan B. Anthony neighborhood that was empty for a decade. We had a resident that was in the neighborhood. So a neighbor purchased this home. We helped them renovate that home, and they agreed to keep the price at a affordable price, rental price for the tenants that was living there. So we have a number of different programs through the land bank that allows for us to have residents purchase a number of these properties. We also have, partnerships with the Community Land Trust. Now, I may have a different sort of opinion than Councilmember Lupien on land trust, but, you have a partnership. They have done some great work with renovating homes and getting those into, first-time home buyers or, people that want to own a home in their hands. So the city does a number of different programs through the Neighborhood and Business Development Department with not only helping people purchase properties for rental, to create rental, but also to create home ownership. And our hope is that through this ARPA funds that with the Buy the Block program and number of other initiatives that we will create more opportunities for people to buy homes. And right now, our first-time home buyers program, you have to have a class. That's in partnership with community-based organizations, know what it is like, know what owning a home is all about, save for a rainy day and all of that. You have to have a certificate. We also have a partnership with the Housing Council that also helps landlords and tenants. I know that RHA also has a program with their Section 8 tenants A number of them have graduated on to become homeowners. And so there's a lot that's going on when it comes down to home ownership and helping residents in our city become homeowners.
Excellent. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
Okay, I skipped over sections 5.1 to 5.6, so I'm gonna go back to 5.1 and 5.6 in a second. But let's wrap up questions on 5.7 through 5.19. Councilmember Lupien, you have a question on specifically related to sections 5.7 through 5.19?
I just wanted to a follow-up question to something Mayor was mentioning about the house in the Susan B. Anthony neighborhood. If I'm remembering correctly, was that a pilot initiative?
Yes, it was a pilot initiative. I believe that we were able to do 2 or 3 homes that way. I would have to get you the exact number.
And is that pilot being extended and kind of brought on as a program of the city?
As long as we have the funding available, those dollars I believe had came from the AG's office, and so it's one of those things that, hopefully with the community input and other things that we're receiving as it pertains to the ARPA funds, we'd be able to extend that.
Thank you.
And I believe that, and Chris, you may be able to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that there's just something that just came out of the state regarding land banks and funding specifically for land banks that we're hopeful that Rochester Land Bank can take advantage of, and that would be very, very helpful. I'm not sure if, I think it may be Gary that knows more about that, but
I'd have to circle back with you, Mayor, on that.
Okay. We're going to try to figure that out, but that may be another way for us to be able to fund some of these initiatives as well.
Okay, so we're gonna, from 5.17 to 5.19, I'm gonna jump back. 5.1 to 5.6 were mainly highlights and overall parts of the Department of Finance, departmental highlights, and that's a very important section, and I skipped over it, so I apologize for that. So I'm gonna go back to 5.1 through 5.6 and then move on to 5.20 through 5.23. President Scott, did you have something on 5.1 to 5.6?
Yes, actually, I thought I had missed that. So
No, you didn't miss it. You didn't miss it. I skipped over it.
Okay. On 5.4, traffic violations, it says work with a debt collection agency to recover funds. Are we not doing that now?
Exactly, Council. We're not doing that currently now. And parking and traffic collectively got together and we provided a new RFP regarding a collection agency.
And are there a large amount of unpaid fines or fees?
Yes, over $1 million.
Whoa.
Yes, and right now, all those cases, well, remember, we have also old cases that were transferred to us since 2018. So it's 2018, from a period of 2018 to 2020. And they are all at Monroe County, and they have an index number currently. So they went to civil judgment. However, it's a challenge of us trying to collect the money. That's why we're going in the direction now of a collection agency to oversee and manage that.
So the collection process would start before the civil judgment process is initiated, or?
No, not at all. We will notify them that their case is going to civil judgment. And then when we don't get a response, then we will inform them that their case now is transferring to the collection agency.
All right.
So, Council President, remember when we took over the Traffic Violations Bureau, when we created it, were a number of outstanding fines and tickets. And so we inherited all of that, and the file is extensive. And so, those bills, of course, are still due. We're going to do our best to try to clear and to get those tickets reduced for those people that owe it. And a collection agency will allow us to be able to do that.
Is there a sense of how much of this is new and how much of it is what we inherited of the million?
Yes, I can provide that information to you. I don't have it prepared, but I will ensure that you, the council gets it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. On 5.5, it shows an almost $300,000 reduction in security for the garage. What's going on with that?
So, Mayor, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Laura.
So during the past year, during the course of the pandemic, we lost the bulk of our garage customers, and the revenue generated from our customers is used to pay our expenses. The largest of our expenses is security. And when we realized that we only had 10, 15, 20% of our customer base in the garage during the day, we looked to reduce our expenses. And we were able to meet with RPD and city security before making this decision to cut expenses to ensure that they were able to patrol the facilities throughout the evenings and on the weekends when we didn't have a contracted guard in the facilities. And they agreed that they could provide patrol through the garages. City security agreed to provide patrol through the garages. And that allowed us the opportunity to cut back on our security hours, thereby reducing our overall expenses.
So, but am I to understand that was done in light of the lack of utilization during the pandemic?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so now that we're coming out of the pandemic and this budget year, we won't be in a pandemic, there's no expectation that the usership would increase again?
Yes, we do expect usership to increase, but not to the extent it was pre-pandemic. Right now, our garages are being utilized at about 50% occupancy. We do anticipate upwards of 70% on average. Many of our businesses have realized that their employees can successfully function from home, and some of our businesses don't plan to return to full staff, and that means we won't have as many vehicles in our garages. But we do anticipate changing the hours. It was a temporary measure to temporarily reduce our expenses.
So city security and police even are general fund. The parking garages are enterprise funds, right?
That's correct.
So you're saying we're going to have general fund expenses utilized for these enterprise fund operations. How does that work out in the end?
So I can speak to that, Council President. So the parking fund is tax supported. So, we give a certain amount of property tax every year to the parking fund. And again, as Laura mentioned, in light of, the lack of revenues that we saw during the pandemic, we made some adjustments on the expense side. The costs associated with RPD and city security, kind of going through on their, as part of their regular shifts, right? It's not an incremental expense. So they're just sort of doing these drive-throughs periodically. So it's not, like I said, it's not an incremental cost to the general fund for what's happening.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on 5.1 to 5.6? Councilmember Lupien, you had a question on traffic, but that doesn't come up until 5.34 to 5.38. And we'll get there shortly. Anything else on 5.1 to 5.6? Okay. We've done 5.7 to 5.19. Now we'll go to 5.20 to 5.23, which is assessment.
Councilmember Evans, I have a question.
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to know a little bit more on what's on page 520, the implementation of the new re-levy program for calculation of supplemental taxes.
The supplemental taxes are basically if, let's say, a city sells a property to just an individual, or somebody sells something with a veterans exemptions or a seniors exemption, the property and the new owner is not entitled to those exemptions. It basically goes on the tax roll as of the date of transfer. So currently we calculate the supplemental taxes and it's all prorated by the day, the number of days. So currently we're doing that on the mainframe, but there is a program available through the county that we will start to utilize.
So that will do that calculation automatically in the system?
Yes, so all we have to do is just input the sale date, and it will calculate tax rates, whatever exemptions were there. Right now, it's a mainframe system, so we are trying to move off of that. So
Just so I'm clear, the implementation of this program will help make sure there's no errors in that tracking system? And,
Correct.
where there, okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you. And then, let's see, there's on page 521, and I see there's overtime increases in the records units. Can you give an explanation for that?
Yeah, it's basically processing of the exemptions. I mean, we are shorthanded now. We did lose one person just prior to the pandemic who went out for medical reasons. We weren't able to backfill that position. We lost another key person during COVID, and we do have, at the end of this month, another key person who's been here for 34 years that's retiring. So we do need to update a little bit.
So, okay, so the overtime increases is added to the budget versus just hiring someone?
Yeah, we should be able to get through with some overtime. I would certainly love to backfill that other clerk position, but it's just not feasible at this point.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question in this section.
Okay, 520 to 523 assessment, Councilmember Melendez.
Okay, so an overarching question just based on the state of the city in terms of the housing bubble. Obviously, coming out of the pandemic, we've seen a huge, it's a seller's market. There's a lot of increase in terms of what housing values are not assessed values, but sale values. I'm just wondering from an assessment standpoint, if there is some consideration, how does that impact assessments at all? We've seen some neighborhoods where the assessed value of housing has gone up, upwards of 30K per property. Specifically the Culver Merchants area. I know my sister owns a property over there. And while that's a good thing for her, it also might price some people out of their own neighborhoods. So I'm just a little concerned about the impacts and gentrification and how that could impact us long term. So can anyone speak to, given where we are in the seller's market, how that impacts assessment?
Well, we reassess every 4 years. So the next time we'll do a citywide reassessment will be in the summer and fall of 23 for the 24-25 tax year. So yeah, I mean, we're seeing it. There's just, they say it's a seller's market. There's a shortage of homes, but really we're seeing just about as many sales as we always have. and they are there. I mean, there's bidding wars on these properties. So, 2 years down the road, we'll take a look at it. Hopefully I'm sure it's going to level out at some point, but I don't think it's going to dip too much. I mean, that's just my opinion, but we will take it into consideration, when we do those valuations. It's hard. I just don't know at this point to see what the market's going to do.
Thank you.
Councilmember Pio.
All right, we are about to talk about something a little futuristic here. NFTs, have we looked at the possibility of utilizing our city records to create NFTs for the ownership of these homes? We talk about locate, identify, inventory, and record all real property. Have we looked into that so that it's more digitalized and decreases the amount of title work necessary when someone buys or sells a home?
That wouldn't be an assessment function. I think that's more of a title search type of situation. I mean, there are organizations out there that operate basically strictly on, off the web title. There's a couple of those organizations, but that wouldn't be an assessment function.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Councilmember Gruber.
Thanks, Councilmember Evans. Mike, I just want to make sure I follow, because I'm looking at 523 in the assessment personnel study, and you said that you're not backfilling a position, someone that's, I think you said retiring, but I don't see any cuts in staffing here. So are you losing a position or?
No, there was a position just prior to the start of COVID where it was a clerical position, and they went out on medical. So basically they retired early. So I lost that position just prior to the start of fiscal year 21. So
he's in a process, he needs to hire some more staff.
Yeah.
Right now they're shorthanded, but he's in a process of hiring additional staff.
Got it. I just want to make sure, I heard Director Brooks Harris say this at the start too, when I was talking about collections. And, I just want to make sure that we are staffing the finance department appropriately to make sure that our city can run. And it sounds like we're really basically cut down to the bone here to be able to do the job. Can I just ask, Chris, was there a bigger blah to finance than other departments?
No, quite the opposite.
Can I actually, that would be a useful thing for me for us all to be able to see, is what the blah was for each department. Is that something we can get our hands on in the next week?
I don't know if if you want to talk about this, you want me to answer this, but that's not something we have typically provided in the past. We would not typically provide, right? The mayor's, it's an internal process, and the mayor's, proposed budget in the end is what you get, right? So the process prior to that, how the sausage is made isn't.
Got it. I mean, fair enough. I should be able to go through each department myself and figure that stuff out if that's what needs to be done. I mean, not what the allocation was, but what the actual proposal was.
Right. Well, remember too, in terms of the process itself, right? Departments are assigned to BLA, and there's a menu of options that comes, to the budget office and to the mayor for consideration and decisions, right? So the fact that a department was given a BLA doesn't necessarily mean that that's where they ended up with the budget.
Correct.
Understood.
We leave it up to department heads to really allocate and to advocate and to say exactly what it is that they need in order to do the job effectively and efficiently as possible. The other thing that is noted here is that a lot of technology has come to the finance department in the last couple of years, of course. And so that also, part of, bringing on new technology, unfortunately, a consequence of that is, of course, a reduction in staff. But, I have been assured that, and I know the budget director has been assured that the staffing levels in the finance department are where they need to be. And we do know that last year's budget, we moved payroll from finance over to HR because it was better alignment with the Kronos system and the Workday system with human resources. And so, we can, Director Harris can talk to us about any additional challenges that they may have. And Chris is 100% right, just because there's a blah and, directors or commissioners put in information on, okay, this is what we would cut. In the end, we look at the system, the department, what their needs are, what they're advocating for, and what we see as investments in alignment, and make the decisions based on that. Every department would tell you, and that they need more and they want more. Unfortunately, it's a situation where we have to balance a budget and we have to provide that information to you and make the best decisions possible in order to provide that. And we leave it up to our department heads to make sure that they inform us of the challenges that they have in anything of getting work done. And we have been assured that the finance department is working effectively and efficiently with the people that they have. And if they have a challenge during the year, we would make adjustments to change that.
Thank you.
Okay, President Scott?
Yes, I'm still a little confused with the answer about the increase in overtime because of the reduction in staff. Because what has been submitted does not show any reduction. So I don't understand.
There was a slight increase in overtime on the clerical side, on the record side.
Right.
So
Right.
I think that when you say you lost a staff member, they're saying, did you actually, was the staff member, were you not allowed to backfill that staff member because of like the hiring committee? Or is it that you're in you just haven't been able to fill the position going forward, but that's something that you're going to fill? I think that that's where the confusion lies.
No, it was actually taken out of the budget. The person left last year on medical right at the beginning of
So in
March.
last year, so that was in last year's budget. You lost
Last year's budget. So I lost
last
them
year's
in last
budget.
fiscal year. Yes, correct.
So in March of 2020, this person went out on medical leave, and in July, in the June budget of last year, the 2020-2021 budget, that person position was eliminated.
Correct.
Okay, so that's why you don't see a reduction in this year's budget, because it was
Right.
eliminated in last year's budget.
But 2021 shows in a column just like 21-22, and the number's the same. There is no reduction.
Because the person we lost them prior to, it was cut out of the budget at the start of COVID. They went out on medical, but then I wasn't able to backfill the position for 20-21.
I understand what you're saying, Council President. I understand what you're saying. There should be a zero somewhere.
Right.
Where
Exactly.
I understand what you're saying. So let us take a look at that. Okay?
Okay.
Look at
All
that.
right.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, anything else on 520 to 523? Okay, we're gonna move on to 524 to 528. Everyone's favorite topic, parking and municipal violations. 524 to 528.
I have a question.
Yes. Councilperson Lupien.
Can we get a breakdown of traffic violations by offense and then what we earn from that, and also parking?
Yes, we can provide that.
Thank you.
We can too.
Can you talk about just a little bit about parking revenue from the meters and what you think will be happening coming out of the pandemic? You know, I mean, I know it's different now that we're opening back up. We're starting to get back to normal.
We are seeing slowly, we're seeing the meter usage increase. We're at about 20% on average of all the meter time that's available for use being used during the past month. But it's a lot higher than where we were at this time last year. We're about 13% higher than where we were at this time last year. So it's been a significant improvement, not yet where we were pre-pandemic, but I do anticipate as businesses start to rebound and restrictions are lifted with regard to occupancy in restaurants and other establishments, that we will see meter usage rise again.
Thank you. Anyone else on this section?
Yeah.
have a question.
Sorry, go ahead, Councilmember Harris.
I'm sorry, you guys aren't using the chat anymore, so I'm not. Let's go back to the chat. But Councilmember Gruber, go ahead, and then Councilmember. Did I hear Councilmember Harris?
Yes, you did. And
Okay.
I'll make mine quick so I can make space for Councilmember Harris.
Okay.
But just a quick question for, I guess this is really for both parking and traffic violations. Obviously, you referenced this in the budget book, but the state just passed the, I forget what the bill is called, but that is ending suspensions. I believe that's for both parking and moving violations. And I'm just wondering if you can give a little bit of a sense of what the impact is going to be locally, how we intend to implement that, if it's going to put more of a strain on your work. Just looking for comments on that generally.
Councilman Gilbert, that affects traffic violation, not parking. Would you like for me to address it now or wait till I get to my section?
Councilor Evans, is that okay? Since I mistakenly went out of order, do you want me to wait?
She can go ahead and answer it now, although let's try to stick to the sections.
And just for clarity, so that the suspension bill has nothing to do with parking violations. It's only for moving violations.
Yes.
Got you. Okay, thanks. Yeah, I'd love an answer.
Okay, so as of January the 1st, this year, 2021, we were quite surprised that this new driver's license suspension reform act was instituted. Basically, all traffic agencies and traffic courts are prohibited from suspending licenses for failure to pay. However, we can still suspend for failure to answer. So let me talk about that a little bit more. As of April the 1st of this year, that act went into effect, where if a person does not respond to their ticket or they have not accepted our reduced plea offer that we provided, that's considered failure to pay, where we could, if they don't show up, we could suspend them for failure to pay. Now, we can only suspend them if they did not answer their ticket when they received it or did not go to trial for appear. And that's all as of April the 1st. Now, the other part to this act, which will be effective September the 5th, is where we have to provide a payment plan. And the payment plan basically is saying that all motorists are eligible to participate in this payment plan, and it's based on 2% or $25 of their net earning. And that's where we also have planned to utilize the collection agency to oversee and manage that for us and report that and do the collection.
Thank you. And that's where that's where there is a linkage between traffic violations and parking, because you went out to RFP for collections agency together.
Exactly.
Got you. And is there any linkage in the larger finance department around tax collections, or are those completely separate in terms of the collection processes?
They're separate.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the answer. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay, Councilmember Harris, you have something on 524 to 528?
Yes, thank you. I see that, you had mentioned that there was decreased revenue on parking, and I see on page 524 that you maintain and install on-street parking meters. And as you continue to maintain and install them, I'd like to know, is there intent to replace all of the coin-operated parking meters, or what's the process for, replacing those items as they are problems found with them, or if you install them?
All of the old-fashioned coin-operated meters were replaced with new meters. It'll be 2 years this summer. The new meters will accept not just coin, but credit cards, as well as a pay by phone feature using an app. So the days of just accepting coins are gone. We don't have any of those meters left on any of our city streets.
Thank you for the update. Thanks.
Councilmember Lupian?
Yeah, the pension, or sorry, the payment plan that you were just mentioning and using the collections to manage it, does that in any way show up on someone's credit report because it's a collections agency?
It will.
So if they opt for a payment plan, it will damage their credit?
It will.
Is there any way to do it in a different way so that it doesn't damage their credit?
I can address that. We have the option to have our collection agency not report to any of the credit bureaus. Frankly, the Parking Bureau has not been reporting any of its outstanding debt on file with the collection agency to any of the bureaus that track credit scores. So none of our customers or constituents have had their credit impacted by their parking tickets having been placed with a collection agency. And we've included that in our request for proposals, that it's the city's discretion as to whether or not parking tickets and or traffic moving violations tickets should be placed with any of the credit reporting bureaus. And I'll defer back to Dr. Smith for her response to that.
So yes, it is our discretion. We haven't finalized it yet, but it can affect it. So Laura and I are in the process right now of reviewing the proposals that we receive and plan to make a decision by this coming Friday. So we will take that into consideration.
Yeah, thank you so much. I do know that, I think the overall goal is to help people improve their credit, and that's what we're doing at the Financial Empowerment Center. So I do urge that we take that into consideration when going out for that. Thank you.
All right. Let's move on to purchasing. Oh, you got another one?
Yep.
On this section, go ahead, Councilmember Pio, then we'll move on to purchasing.
Thank you. The app that you can download for the parking permit or for parking fees, are you able to go back in and update for more parking on it? Like if the hour is up, can you go back into the app, pay for another hour without having to go to the vehicle?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay, now let's move on to 529 to 533, purchasing. Question on purchasing, 529 to 533. Okay. If none, then we will move on to 534 through 538, traffic violations. Councilmember Lupian, you had a question on traffic violations. You want to start off that section?
I think I'm good. Thank you.
You got your answer? Okay. 534 through 538. Some of the questions from the previous section kind of tied in with traffic violations. Is there any other questions related to traffic violation in 534 to 538? Okay, if none, then I will thank Ms. Brooks Harris and her team for taking our questions during this section of the budget. And we will take a 6-minute break and come back with Mr. Taro from the library at 11:20. So let's take a quick 6-minute break and we'll reconvene at 11:20.
Thank you.
Okay. We're back with the library section of our budget. I want to welcome Director Utaro and your team.
Thank you.
And I will turn it over to you for introductions and any comments you may want to make before we get started into questions.
Okay, I'm happy to introduce Bree Harrison, our Finance Director for the Rochester Public Library and Monroe County Library System. Anna Soro, who is our Personnel Manager for the Rochester Public Library. Adam Traub, our Associate Director for the Monroe County Library System and Central Library. And new to you this year is Melanie Lewis, who is our Deputy Director for Community Libraries. Melanie replaced Dr. Reeves, who left us at the beginning of the year to pursue her education. Melanie has been with Rochester Public Library and Monroe County Library System for many years. She's worked at the Douglas branch, at Charlotte, and most recently as our outreach coordinator for the Monroe County Library System. I am ready for your questions.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. We'll go right into Councilmember Patterson and then Councilmember Lupien.
Patty, I think you already know what my question is. Do I have to ask it, or you just want to go from off the top?
I can anticipate. So regarding the library situation in the Northeast Quadrant,
thank you, ma'am.
We are in the process of early stages of a complete interior renovation of the Lincoln branch, which is part of the capital improvement program. We expect to be full-on construction beginning later in the fall and going into early 2022, which will require that the branch will be closed for a period of time. Melanie and her staff have been scouting locations in the area for a potential satellite location in the Northeast. As for potential use of ARPA funds for a new library in the Northeast, that remains to be seen. We're waiting for public comment on that.
I haven't spoken to them, but there's a building literally right next door to you. Have you spoken to the good folks over there to see if they might be interested in hosting you for a little while?
Melanie, I know you and Joan have been the two working on potential locations. I know we've talked with one of the recreation centers, right?
Are you referring to the daycare center that's next door, or?
Well, upper room. I don't know.
Not yet. I think there are issues with the equipment being secure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. So that's that, and I'm happy here that you are looking for that second location in the Northeast. I will reiterate that the Northeast District is the poorest district in the city of Rochester. It has only one library. We have other districts in the city that have 3 branch libraries. I don't have any, I don't begrudge anybody a library, but when you're the poorest district, you need at least some equity. And 1 isn't even close to 3 in this situation, and it sure as heck ain't 2. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Lupien, Library.
Yes, I was wondering if you would be able to provide data on the services that are provided to the community through the library in terms of, small business people helped, or, people connected to services.
Are there, you mentioned small business services. Are there other topics that you're interested in?
The services that are provided, out of that little cubicle area in the first floor, like I'm not even aware of all of them that the library does help, but I know that there's maybe a nurse that comes in and other homeless services, those kind of.
Okay. Yes, I can do that. There is data reported on most of those activities in my monthly reports to the library board, which are shared with Councilmember Gruber. He could potentially share those with you if you're interested. Our Business Insight Center at the Central Library provides some interesting data monthly regarding the value that the materials and services they provide to the business community are bringing monthly to various small businesses. So that's an area of my monthly report that I can certainly send to you and keep you updated on that. We have not had a full return to the Central Library of the Library Outreach Services group, which addresses and works with our unhoused population. And that has been for a number of reasons. The lack of staff from our partners is certainly one of them, but we are working to rejuvenate that space and bring the staff back on a daily basis. They've been in a day or two a week off and on, but not on a regular basis. We do currently have a good relationship with URMC at the Central Library, where they just finished a multi-week series of a staff table related to smoking cessation, where they had counselors on site and provided information to people who are interested in that. We do not at this time have a nurse, a volunteer nurse on staff, but that is something that we hope to return to in the future. We're also looking at expanding the outreach activities to additional branch libraries. We've had LROC at Lincoln and at Monroe at different times, and we expect to be, or we hope to be able to share those services in more branches as we move forward.
That's really great to hear. Is there information on the library website for those satellite branches so that, people can push that out?
I don't know. I will have to check on that with you.
Okay.
If it's not there, we will definitely get it there.
Thank you. And just one more question. Does this budget reflect any expansion in hours for libraries?
We have been looking at additional hours at Wheatley. There was a point where we had reduced staff at Wheatley, which would have resulted in reduced hours, but that position was restored, so the hours are the same.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Harris and then President Scott.
Thank you. I see that you have listed in your program changes the Central Library Secret Room. What is the Central Library Secret Room? And that you will be reimagining it. So can you explain that to me?
Absolutely. The Secret Room is a long tradition at the Central Library. It was built into the Rundle Building in 1936 and was part of the Children's Room, which is currently, the original space is currently the home of the Local History Division. When the new library was built in 1997 and the Children's Department was moved across the street, the Secret Room had become such a tradition that it was necessary to incorporate it into the new design. So there is a secret room in the Children's Center at the Central Library. For the last 70, almost 80 years, it has housed the George Cooper doll collection, which is an interesting local history, piece of local history itself. We've recently moved that collection out of the secret room back into the Rundle Building on the first floor, where it can be seen by many, many more people. And the secret room is being redesigned to become more of a place of wonder and play for children when they find it in the library.
So the goal is, let me be clear, to make the secret room more or less secret?
No, actually, it's to bring it up into the current times. What we had found over the last 20 years or so, the types of dolls that were displayed as part of the Cooper collection are very much of the 1930s and 1940s. And modern children find them rather frightening. Yeah, they are a little creepy,
I will say.
I'd love
They're
to. I'd love
beautiful,
to
but
see
they're
it.
creepy.
I'll have to come over and
Yes, yes.
and visit.
Yeah, this was, the doll collection itself is a really interesting multicultural project dating back to the 30s, where George Cooper, who was the principal of a local school, had the students of his school write to all of the known countries at the time asking for a doll that represented their culture. So we have dolls from, I want to say 80 countries at that time that represent the cultures of those countries. So they're very, it's a very, very interesting collection, but not something that appeals to 21st century children, should I say. Bree, I don't know if you want to talk about the process that we used with RIT to reimagine the secret room.
So before COVID, this was actually the RIT Design School's Hyperspace Challenge. So we had student and professors coming and spending a week with our children's librarians and staff and even some library users, and really created a concept for that space that again, engaged play and making it a discovery. When you walk in, you want it to be transformative and magical. And the students really got that. And they were really inspired by the space and the history there. So I just want to mention that, and also the fact that part of the funding was provided by Kaboom. So we've been also working with different agencies to make this a connection to the corridor of play. So now there will be a second piece to the corridor of play in the winter time that will allow individuals to come from the river and be able to use the walkway, but also come into the building and have that discovery and have both programming for the space, but also in the spaces, you can still walk in and find things to do there. So we're very excited about it.
Councilman Harris, if I could add, 40 some odd years ago, I found the secret room to be an incredibly exciting and fun place, one of my favorite places to go. But even then, the doll collection was absolutely terrifying. So I'm thrilled to hear about this. And I know children will be very excited by the secret room and also the changes with the doll collection.
Councilmember Harris, if you ever watched Chucky, the movie Chucky with those dolls, that's what you can picture when you think of the secret room collection and those dolls that are there.
That's exactly what I was envisioning. Quite scary. Yeah, I'm glad that you guys are reimagining it, the secret room, and hopefully that we can get more participation from our residents, and it be less secret, because I didn't know anything about it.
Just one final word on that. When we were working with the RIT students and with the architect on this, we worked also with the children who participate in the Parent Leadership Training Institute. So we worked with the parents and the children from that who regularly use the Children's Center at Central. So they had some ownership there, and they'll see some of their ideas in play when we reopen.
Thank you. And I have a question. And this is a very exciting. I love the library, and I love all the things all the good things that I've heard that you guys have been doing throughout the COVID-19 and supporting our families. So there's one thing that's on page 11.6 that I was very interested in, or how you evaluate your effectiveness and your use of the Digital Media Lab, and then recommendations for future enhancements. And one of the things that I think about when I look at this, how you expand the virtual and partnerships with programs, I'd like to envision you guys maybe expanding or considering partnerships with organizations like the Smithsonian Museums in DC, a virtual partnership to have the students tour those places. They may not have an opportunity to visit DC, but can they tour those opportunities virtually, like the African American Museum in DC, those type of things. Even our very own museum here in Rochester offer virtual experiences through those partnerships. So I'd just like you to consider those if you haven't already.
Absolutely, we can do that. I will let you know as well that last year, before COVID hit, we had secured funding for our Safe to Be Smart coordinator, Derek Coley, to chaperone 20 students from Rochester to actually go to Washington to visit the African American Museum there. That funding is being held by
the Reynolds Library Board right now and will be made available at some point in the future. It was intended to be, I want to say, a 5-day trip by bus to Washington, where they would visit that particular museum, but also others in the
Yes,
area.
that museum is definitely, I would urge anyone to go visit it because I went there and it definitely takes a couple of days to digest. That concludes my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Gruber.
I think you had President Scott next. I'm happy to.
I'm sorry.
I'm
President
happy to wait
Scott.
for her.
Sorry, President Scott, then Councilmember Gruber.
Yes, thank you. I'm puzzled by on page 11.7, the assistant library director. It's like, I kind of figure it's a quarter of the position, right? Because first I couldn't imagine anybody making that as half the salary in that position, but it's actually a quarter of a position, right?
It was. For the last couple of years, we had taken a quarter of that position and applied it to the central library because Dr. Reeves, who was in that position, was also supervising the teen center at the central library.
So is that where, because it says that it's shifts to the community library, but when I look there, it's only 3/4 of the position.
Bree, you look like you want to say something.
No, I think the differential is just the bracket at the time and the step. But we went from the 20% to 100% in our community libraries for the position. The bracket.
Okay, it says 0.75.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, 25. Sorry, 25%.
No, she's saying that it says 0.75 in the community section, Bree. That may be an error that we would need to correct. Can you tell me what page you're seeing the 0.75?
11-18.
11-18. The position for 2021, 2022 is fully in community libraries. So the assistant library director 3 was 0.75 in 2020, 2021, and 0 in the coming budget because we've changed the title from 0. So the next item down, deputy director, you see 0 under 2020 and 1 under 21, 22.
Okay, got it. Okay, all right, thank you.
All right.
Councilmember Gruber.
Thank you. And Director Utaro, thank you for all the work that you and your team have done this year. It's a real pleasure to be the City Council liaison to the Library Board, and I know how hard everyone's worked. I do have a question. A lot of them have been answered already, but just two questions. One is about staffing patterns, generally speaking, in terms of the breakdown between full-time and part-time. I'm wondering, this was a topic of conversation, I believe, in last year's budget about wanting to move more positions to full-time. Does this budget proposal in front of us start to move us in that direction?
Not really. The library currently has more part-time than full-time staff, and that has happened over the last 10 to 12 years as we've addressed budget reductions. There are a number of issues with having mostly part-time staff, which I have discussed with the mayor and the budget director and the HR director as well. We find that we put a lot of time and energy into training part-time staff, particularly librarians, who are then hired away for full-time jobs in our town libraries. We most recently lost our children's librarian at the Charlotte branch to a full-time position at the Brockport Library. All of our support staff in the branch libraries are part-time. 20 years ago, 20 or 30 years ago, we were able to offer full-time positions to support staff in the community neighborhoods. We've not been able to do that for as long as I've been in my position because of the budgetary challenges. I've not been quiet about wanting to see that reversed, but I'm also very aware of the challenges, the financial challenges facing the city. So we're able to continue to provide services, but at different levels.
Thank you. And I guess, there are some places where a move from full-time to part-time is deliberate and intentional because it potentially provides more flexibility in staffing and things of that nature. But in this case, the move over the last 12 years, spanning, more than anyone's, individual time on this Zoom call, but the last 12 or so years, as you said, that was not an intentional thing to create more flexibility. It was around trying to, deal with cuts.
Initially, it was approached as a flexibility issue as well as a budgetary saving issue. But as time went on, we found that was not the case.
Got it. And
what we find is that many of our part-time staff have multiple jobs, which completely erases any flexibility they have regarding flexibility in scheduling.
One thing I just wanted to add is that where we have been able to grow and develop a specific program, we have prioritized that creation from part-time to full-time. And the example in the current budget at the Central Library would be the digital media associate.
That's true.
That was a position created through Imagine You. When that construction happened about 4 years ago, it was a pilot program, and the position, the incumbent, will become full-time and has really, especially over the pandemic, worked very hard to develop that program and work with partners to make that media space special. I do want to also just piggybacking on what Patty said, years ago, I believe part of the assumption was that the part-time staff are substantial savings because they do not take, for example, obviously benefits, but they do not participate in New York State retirement. We found the vast majority of our support staff and part-time librarians do participate in New York State retirement because they are piecing together 2 part-time jobs at one other member library location to get the equivalent of full-time work. So the retirement contribution from the employer would be equivalent across the 37 and a half hours versus the 20 hours. So it's just something to keep in mind, and we know budget is already aware of.
Got it. Thank you. That's really helpful to hear. Just out of curiosity, is there any concern about talent, about people with a master's in library sciences if things were to move from part-time to full-time, or it's the same requirement even for part-time employees?
That's a very complicated question to unpack, I will say. We've struggled over the years with finding a diverse base of employees in the MLS category. I know I have worked with our area library schools in Buffalo and Syracuse, and have worked directly with staff who are interested in becoming librarians. And I have found more success in mentoring and encouraging our existing staff to pursue a master's in library science than in trying to work with the Syracuse and Buffalo schools. We currently have, for example, a young man who is currently a clerk in our arts division at Central, who started as a page. He's in library school now. And I really hope that we'll be able to offer him full-time employment as a librarian when he receives his degree. We have another full-time staff member at the Lincoln branch, who's our Safe to Be Smart coordinator there, who's interested in pursuing a master's in library science. And the city offers a tremendous tuition reimbursement and support policy and program that we're encouraging staff to take advantage of, so we can grow our librarians from within.
Got it. Thank you. And my final question about this subject is, and maybe this was maybe Councilmember Lupien was alluding to this before, but in terms of hours, would moving from part-time to full-time allow us to increase hours without necessarily increasing a huge amount of expenses? Not necessarily.
No, I mean, it's probably a yes and a no there. There would definitely be an increase in expense. There's no question there. And whether we could increase hours would depend on the location. Some of our branches have more staff than others. A branch that, for example, Maplewood, that is fairly thinly staffed, full-time position may not result in a significant number of additional hours. But for a site like Arnett, where the staffing is a little bit more robust, another full-time position would very likely result in more hours.
Okay, thank you. My last question, Councilmember Evans, is just, and we talked about this, I think briefly in CIP, but I see in 1111, there's talk of beginning preliminary design and programming for an expansion at the Maplewood Community Library, which I think is great because you go look at the KPIs and it has the highest door count by seemingly by a significant margin. And hopefully we'll have more and more new Americans entering this community during the Biden-Harris administration.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just wondering, in terms of just the overall timeline for that. So you want to start some of the design work this year. Do you have a sense of when we may actually see some improvements to the facility there?
Bree, I'm going to ask you to address that since you've been working most closely on this with the through the CIP program.
Sure. I think with respect to our Lincoln branch, our existing footprint was intact and our services were there. We needed to improve the space and the sight lines and the visibility and safety. With Maplewood, we really want to be able to open this up for identifying the most appropriate partner programs that will really grow and support the work that's been done by our New Americans librarian and by the outreach and services that are really needed in that neighborhood and community. So it's a very different design project. So we really want to make sure that the emphasis is on a longer program verification and program exploration, because we want to bring in multiple partner programs to make the space bigger, and not just for library services, right? The footprint there we know is too small based on the door count, and we know that Maplewood is struggling with the space that it has. But if we're going to do this in Maplewood, we want to make sure that it is comprehensive and that we have one or more agencies that will co-locate with us there to make those services more than just the library. That Dewey Corridor needs that. So it's not our normal design process. And I hope, and I've been working with Deputy Director Melanie, and we know that this will be different than just the traditional type of design of a library footprint. And we're really open to ideas and suggestions from council members on agencies that we should be doing some direct outreach to as we start the process, which I hope to be in the fall.
Thank you.
Patty, I have a question. Did we ever resolve that issue with the e-books?
There are multiple issues with this, right? There's legislation in the state legislature right now that would address the pricing structure for ebooks. And yesterday we learned that some publishers have hired a lobbying firm to oppose it. Maryland, the state of Maryland recently passed legislation that requires publishers to sell ebooks to libraries at a reasonable price. Just to remind all of you, when we've talked about this in the past, the cost of an ebook is often 4 to 5 times higher than the cost of a print book. So if we purchased one hardcover of a James Patterson book, for example, the corresponding ebook could be $80 to $90. And many publishers limit the length of time a library can actually loan an ebook to 26 or 52 borrowing incidents or 2 years, whichever comes first. So purchasing an ebook isn't like building a physical library collection right now, where we won't have those ebooks forever, as we could with a print item. So the best thing I can say, Councilmember Evans, is that the library community has been successful in gaining the attention of our state delegations across the country, and lifting this up as an issue, not just in New York State, but throughout the country. So I'm hopeful that the legislation before the New York legislature will pass, and that will provide some relief to us, because over the last year, we've seen a significant increase in the use of electronic content throughout Monroe County, but also specifically within the city of Rochester. So people have discovered our collections who didn't know that they were there before. And when people were not able to actually come into the library, they turned to electronic content as an alternative quite frequently.
Thank you. Any other questions for the library? Okay. Director Utaro, thank you as always for coming before us. Thank you for all your work during the pandemic and all the things that the library have done, particularly with the distribution of the MiFis and all that good stuff. Hopefully we'll get back, hopefully we're coming back to normal, you know, in the next coming weeks and months. And I know we spent a lot of time talking about the secret room. I am looking forward to seeing that revised secret room. So thank you to you and your team for your time this afternoon. Colleagues, we will take a lunch break and we will reconvene at 1:10 for the Rochester Police Department. And we will be on a different Zoom link, so you can disconnect from this one, and we will reconvene at 1:10. And want to thank you again,